All right, so I'm just going to take you into an excerpt of the whole sermon. It's not every day we play sermons on the show, but I think it was the 41st anniversary, right, of the unfortunate and tragic killing of the judges, and the Ghana Bar Association and other partners had organized this memorial service, at which they invited the former General Secretary of the Christian Council, the Right Reverend Dr. Kwabena Opuni Frimpong, to deliver a sermon. It was a long sermon, but I have a 1.5 minute excerpt, which I think captures the main argument he makes. And I think it will be good for our morning reflection. Mm-hmm. So here's Opuni Frimpong speaking about the judiciary and the legal system.
People think that, I don't know, I have heard that sometimes judges and the lawyers can talk and agree and exchange either gold or envelopes, and something happens. Some even can give you land. Especially if the case is land. I don't know about her. That there are real public perception that is not in your favor. That is not the story of these people we are celebrating. But after 41 years, this one here is your story. Redeem your public image. Ghana Bar Association must redeem its public image, because how Ghanaians are thinking about lawyers and judges is not in your interest. Even though when you die, we will not put you downwards, but people still think that some of you will go to heaven. I said this morning, there's still a notion in this country that justice is for the highest bidder. Justice is for the privileged individuals. Justice is not for village people, women who've been accused of witchcraft. There are people who still believe that. And that is.
So that was a Reverend Dr. Kwabena Opuni Frimpong speaking about the state of justice delivery in the country. And I think the point I wanted to get comments from the listeners on was, he's talking about the public perception. All right. In fact, let's play it again. He's talking about the public perception of judges and lawyers. Is there a way to test this? Listeners, what is your perception of judges and lawyers? Listen to what he said again.
People think that, I don't know, I have heard that sometimes judges and the lawyers can talk and agree and exchange either gold or envelopes, and something happens. Some even can give you land. Especially if the case is land. I don't know about her. That there are real public perception that is not in your favor. That is not the story of these people we are celebrating. But after 41 years, this one here is your story. Redeem your public image. Ghana Bar Association must redeem its public image, because how Ghanaians are thinking about lawyers and judges is not in your interest. Even though when you die, we will not put you downwards, but people still think that some of you will go to heaven. I said this morning, there's still a notion in this country that justice is for the highest bidder. Justice is for the privileged individuals. Justice is not for village people, women who've been accused of witchcraft. There are people who still believe that. And that is.
All right, so the Reverend Opuni Frimpong talking about the image of the judiciary and lawyers. I just wanted to find out, is it when he says people think that justice for the highest bidder, is that blamable on judges and lawyers? Of course, he talks about there's a perception that there's corruption as well, and the fact that people think that if you want to win a case, you give land or you give whatever. But I feel that the most important point he's trying to make is about access to justice for the poor. All right, that it's those who have money who get justice, and those who don't have money don't get justice, which is not an ideal situation. But my question is that is that not more a system issue? I.e., you're talking about the judicial system or the justice delivery system, which includes lawyers, judges, court clerks, the judicial service, police. Do you understand my point? As against, okay, let me rephrase the question. So is the conduct of lawyers and judges the most important part of our justice delivery system? I.e., is what lawyers and judges do that largely determines what people get from a justice delivery system. In fact, I'm not even sure if I'm using the terms correctly. Justice delivery, judicial system, is it the same? Justice delivery even includes police, right? So let's talk about the justice delivery system. Is the conduct of lawyers and judges the most important part of that equation? Or there are issues like laws, the judicial service, the way prosecutors behave, police. You get me? Is it fair to place the ills of justice delivery on the conduct of lawyers and judges as the two leading groups? That's me trying to make sense out of this very broad speech. I just played a minute and a half. Do you understand what he's saying, Sky?
Yeah, I understand what he's saying, and I would want to celebrate him for raising this matter and bringing it onto the front burner so that we can all talk about it. But before I proceed, let me use the opportunity again to reflect over the gruesome killing of the three venerable justices of our courts, their extrajudicial killing, their murder under very dastardly circumstances, how their bodies were subsequently discovered because the rains had intervened, and then defeating the purpose for which they were set ablaze. And also to extend my well wishes to the family, because they continue to grieve, although some say they have gotten closure. And may their souls continue to rest in perfect peace. Coming back,
I remember the names. I think Justice Ejepong, Justice Akoto, Ado, and then Coranting.
Coming back to
Justice Poku Sarkodie and Justice Coranting Ado.
Yeah. Yes. Coming back to the question that you asked. First of all, we need to understand that a system has many components to it, and those components work together to deliver a certain outcome. Judges and lawyers are just a part of the judicial system or the criminal justice system of our country. You have the police in there, you have the society itself, you have the parliament that makes the laws, you have other institutions of state mandated to administer the laws in one way or the other. And then you have watchful citizenry who must also play their part. Then you have the media and civil society institutions that also police the process. But the people who play what would seem to be a public-facing role in the delivery of justice, these are the lawyers and then also the judges. And so where there is a certain perception, either based on fact or based on a certain conjecture, that they are not living up to expectation, we all have got to be concerned. But this is not the first time that issues of perceptions about the judiciary are coming up. You remember repeated results have come in from the CDD, Afrobarometer reports, which give a certain impression that the public has a perception that suggests that the judiciary is either corrupt or has a perception of corruption. And repeatedly, the calls have been made by those who police our democracy and rule of law, for that matter, that look, we should do something about purging the judiciary and the legal system itself. We also saw the Anas video and how much damage that did to the institution of the judiciary. Of course, others argue that because that was brought into the public domain and people saw judges doing A, B, C, D, collecting goats, money, and all kinds of things, and because the judiciary acted to purge itself, that sort of brought some public confidence back into the system. But it is not a one-off exercise, you understand? You don't clean up the system just by firing a few people. It's a sustained effort that you make as to keep the pressure on the bad nuts, if there are indeed bad nuts, to ensure that they are either found and dealt with or they change their ways. Every now and then, people continue to say these things that, oh, I went to this particular, court, and ABCD happened. I went to see this lawyer and ABCD thing happened. And if you go to the General Legal Counsel, there are many, many, many cases of lawyers allegedly misconducting themselves. People are sometimes told, no, they did nothing wrong, they should go back. Other times, people are found guilty of having broken the law. All these systems are in place to ensure that we retain the very finest of the finest who have unblemished record to police our justice system. So the point I'm trying to make is that, look, if you come down to it, there is a certain natural feeling, which feeling is backed by some evidence, anecdotal as it may seem, that the Ghana Bar Association itself, and I made this point before, appears to have become silent on the issues that matter. Because, mind you, in the days of the PNDC, when they were fighting for return of constitutional rule, the Ghana Bar Association played a pivotal role. It was the front line role they played, trying to push back on dictatorship in our system. And immediately after the reintroduction of constitutional rule, they continue to play that part so robustly. However, what do we see these days? A lot of things have gone wrong in this country. A lot of rights have been abused with so much impunity. You and I sat here, we spoke about the Shaiman brutalities. We spoke about the killings in the north. We spoke about how people were beaten in is it Wa or a community like that. We spoke about the killings in the immediate aftermath of the 2020 elections. So many people have either lost their lives because the military, acted wrongly, or the police acted wrongly, or that institutions of state misbehaved. We spoke about our own colleagues who were brutalized by national security agents. And ideally, the Ghana Bar Association, which should be the bulwark for defending rights of those who do not have a way of speaking for themselves, on a majority of these matters, they have either been silent or basically just decided not to say anything.
Is their silence a recent phenomenon, or you could say for a while now? I'm saying this because there's a new administration, and there's a view that even the prior administration also didn't do that much in terms of the type of public-facing advocacy you are talking about. So, and you know the funny thing, I don't even know the name of the current president of the Ghana Bar Association. I mean, maybe I'm ignorant, maybe I'm growing old, but generally speaking,
you see, if the man is
a GBA president will be known by most people. I'm sure if you pick a mic and ask an average journalist who's your GBA president, they don't even know, because they don't issue statements on anything. They are not discussed. I mean, there have been lots of the issues, and for me, I'm not trying to hold brief. You could say, and maybe you could say that in the years that the GBA was very active, there was an easy target. There was a military dictator at the time, Rawlings. Of course, he became a constitutional president or whatever. But it seems as if you could say in the past decade, it's become more pronounced. There are apparent disinterest in engaging on any national discourse, availability for interviews. I mean, there are issues we even make attempts to get GBA's views on matters. You know, the last time we engaged them was when the Caleb issue happened, and we actually went there to present a petition to them, and they did make some comments. But they've been very reticent. Now, I don't know whether the lack of let me put it this way, the fact that now we are in a democracy, so they don't want to talk again. I don't know.
No, you see, Bernard, I think it is legitimate to argue that, if you are fighting dictatorship, you would be
More
loudest,
vocal.
exactly, more vocal. But the truth is that in the immediate aftermath of the restoration of democracy,
They were still very active.
they were still very active. And many of the cases that came to be decided in our courts, they played a huge part in ensuring that the right things were done. I mean, the most recent case, which is Locus Classicus, or maybe my case with the GBA and others, deciding whether or not the president acted properly in the matter of the appointments onto the Supreme Court or the Electoral Commission. That is the GBA playing its part. But since then, what has happened? Bernard, there's a certain impression that is created. And people sometimes may have some legitimate claims to make, that it would seem that when it is a certain color of political party in office, then they are quiet. And if there is another color of political party in office, then they find their voice. We all know that the GBA as an institution boycotted the Consultative Assembly. And they did so because, of course, people have said that they didn't want to mingle with ordinary people and all of that. I don't think that was the reason. I think there must have been a more legitimate reason why. But that does not mean, or did not mean, that lawyers were not part of the process. Because people went there to make submissions, and they came with legal representation, or they were part of the people.
Some of the prominent people in that body were lawyers.
Exactly. So we drew up the Constitution. But the point I'm making is that it would seem that, and people who make these claims may have some legitimacy behind them. When certain people are in office, they are treated differently. And when other people get to occupy the Flagstaff House, it would seem that a certain, approach is adopted, which is not frontal, which is not taking them on to say that do A, B, C, D. Because, Bernard, this particular administration, with the greatest respect to all the people serving in this government, mismanaged this economy to the point where you and I have had to foot the bill. Properties that we owned as individuals were taken away by this administration in pursuit of restoration of stability for the Ghanaian economy. We didn't cause it. We actually spoke about these things loudly. Listen, listen, listen. They did not listen. And when the thing went south and the S hit the fan, we were asked to intervene.
But is the GBA known for economic discussions? Isn't it more human rights, legal cases? And them, I mean, if you look historically at their public commentary.
There's law to economics.
Okay.
Property ownership is a matter of law. And if there is some unlawful or unconstitutional intervention, which means that a person's property is being taken away without lawful recourse, institutions that are deemed to be the bulwarks for protecting our rights should be speaking.
My other question for you is the point you sought to make about when the different administrations in office and they are being more vocal. Are lawyers not from different political persuasions, so that even if MPP is in power, NDC is in power, there will always be... Okay, maybe my question is, are lawyers in Ghana not split 50-50?
Justice knows no political color.
No, you don't get what I'm saying. I think the impression, or not impression, the import of what I'm getting from your submission, part of it is that it seems as if when this administration is in office, or its antecedents, the GBA is a bit more lenient.
Yes.
Some people believe that is because that tradition had more lawyers, i.e., when they were formed under UCC, they were supposed to be a party of lawyers, businessmen, and the elite.
Yeah, that's
so. Is that
true.
My question is, in 2023, if you did a roll call of lawyers, would more lawyers be of that political persuasion than the other one? For which reason, if they voted for somebody to be their leader, that person would represent their views. The person would be somebody who is more what do you call it? More, I don't want to say the MPP. It's like more, just that it's like
sympathetic.
Yes, it's sympathetic. The way. So it's like, because it's the party of lawyers. There are more lawyers who are on MPP side. So when you become GBA president and MPP is in power, you can't talk much. But when you are GBA president and NDC is in office, because GBA, there are more. So that the question I'm asking is that, is it possible to say that there are more lawyers of that persuasion than of the other persuasion, or of neutral persuasion?
You see, somebody has to do the math. What I can point to, however, is a study done by the Dr. Raymond Atuguba. But then again, even that, when you're approaching it, you ask yourself, okay, who did the research?
But he's also...
you see, so that's one matter. But he made a finding of fact, which you can interpret in many ways.
Okay.
We sought to suggest that even on the bench, there is colorization of decisions.
Was he not called to answer that?
There was a decision.
No, he made. Are you talking about the one he wrote or the one he spoke about?
The one he wrote and spoke about.
Okay.
So he made academic, analysis, blah blah, report produced, which was launched, and he said things. And for some time they said they were not going to hear him, and all kinds of things happened.
So he ran into trouble.
Yeah, he ran into trouble because he had studied the system and came out with certain conclusions. Of course, I mean, academics, as you know,
he was trying to look at the political coloration of the bench.
Yeah, exactly.
And it didn't go down well.
Exactly. And then also, the fact is, I mean, the current president of the Republic, so many people went through his chambers to become great people in society today. Now, the suggestion people make is that by reason of the association with him, they are unable to call him out.
Speak truth to power.
Exactly. But look, with the greatest respect, I once worked with a statesman. The statesman was owned by the current president of the Republic. And this matter is a matter of public record. But that does not stop me from critiquing the president when I felt it was necessary to criticize him. So what I'm asking for is that regardless of whatever relationship you may have with the president, or whoever is associated with him, what is wrong is wrong. Taking over our money the way they have done was unlawful, and they did it anyway.
I'll come to that point later, where in a democracy, one of the things we've seen about Ghana is that now we argue over things that everybody is supposed to believe is wrong. So you can say 35 years ago, when Rawlings was president or head of state under a military regime, it was easy to coalesce around issues and say we disagree because it's undemocratic. But in a democracy, it's almost as if for every wrong, there are people who are prepared to say it is right. So for most issues, and I think the media has also been blamed for this. So like for most issues, we sort of empanel to debate it. So we are debating everything, including things that are supposedly clear.
Yeah.
So it sort of shields people from taking a position. So they'll say, look, you don't want to take a position because there are as many people for it as there are against it. So why do we want to be drawn? So usually when you call them, they say, we don't want to be drawn into the politics of it. So maybe when we come back, I'll ask whether we ourselves have contributed to this, where instead of saying wrong is wrong, we have found a way of making a debate out of every issue. And by so doing, we have absolved our legal profession from taking strong positions on matters of law and morality. I just wanted to put this in context for those who may not know this. So the Reverend Dr. Opuni Frimpong was speaking at the 41st anniversary commemorating the gruesome killing of 3 High Court judges and a retired army officer. I need to give you that history quickly for those of you who may be younger. So on 30th June 1982, 3 High Court judges as well as a retired army officer were murdered in cold blood at the Bundase military range in Accra Plains after being abducted on the night by unidentified assailants. Now, the four, Mrs. Justice Cecilia Kranting Ado, Mr. Justice Kwejo Ajay Jepong, Justice Fred Pokusa Akode, and Major Retired Sam Akwa. On the night of 30th June 1982, Mrs. Akranting Ado was nursing a child. And Justice Pokusa Akode and Justice Kwejo Ajay Jepong, and retired military officer, were abducted from their homes. And Kwame Jepong speaks about what happened to his father and how he was, I think he was a 19-year-old or 18-year-old. They were murdered at the Bundase military shooting range. Now, the PNDC administration set up a special investigation board, which is called the SIB, to initiate investigations into the murder of the 3 High Court judges and a retired army officer. Now, 5 persons were tried. Joachim Amatekwe, who was then age 32, Lieutenant, yes, I remember the PNDC, Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Kweku Amedeka, he was then 27, Lance Corporal Michael Senya, 21, Johnny Jandu, 23, and Tony Tekpo, 24. They were tried by a national public tribunal chaired by Mr. George Ejekum, and which had other members as Madam Comfort Doe, Staff Sergeant Mumu Niseidu, Mr. Jenkins Kofi, and Lance Corporal Moses Tonka. Now, the case started in July 1983, so that's exactly 30 years ago, actually 40 years ago this month. So the case started, and then it came to a judgment by 15th August. So it was a pretty swift trial. So July 20, 1983, by August 15, 1983, the tribunal gave judgment in the case of the people versus Amatekwe and the 4 others. Now, all 5, except Lance Corporal Amedeka, were sentenced to death by firing squad. Now, Amedeka was tried in absentia. He wasn't around. And so, yeah, they were found guilty and sentenced to death by firing squad. And so, subsequently, Martyrs' Day has been sort of placed on June 30, the day that the 3 High Court judges were murdered. For some reason, the busts of the 3 High Court judges does not include that of the military officer, but that's a different discussion. So it was at the 41st. Celebration, or the 41st anniversary, that Opuni Frimpong was asked to speak, and he says that the public perception of judges and lawyers in Ghana is not good, and that lawyers must redeem the image of the judiciary. Now, my question to Sky was whether, if justice delivery is, and he made a point about the fact that justice delivery was only available to the rich, or those who didn't have money were not getting access to justice, and he made a few points about corruption and things. So my question to Sky was whether we could blame lawyers and judges for the state of the perception of the judiciary. And I think he says yes, because they are the main cogs in the wheel. But beyond the perception, so Sky doesn't really talk about corruption, because Opuni Frimpong has spoken about corruption. Sky's point is more about the issue of their silence, of the GBA in particular. So he's decided to move the discussion beyond the perception of corruption to the question of being quiet in the face of a lot of injustice, or just in discussing national issues. Now, Godfred, my attempt to play devil's advocate is that, should we, the media, not be blamed for part of this? And I'm going to explain myself. So, you see, one of the things we've done as a media is that we've managed to make a debate about everything.
True.
Okay, so there are some things that are clear-cut.
They are not debate issues.
For example, how Domelevo was treated. I don't think it's debatable.
Yeah.
Every right-thinking person should know that you don't remove
An auditor general.
another general in the manner in which he was removed. All right. So that shouldn't be a debate. But if we look at the way some of our colleagues and panel to even, the way we've even tackled that issue, we tackle it from a point of view of, yeah, but males too did it under some guy. So it's like equalization. Do you get it? So, and I'm not saying that GBA should not be blamed, but I'm saying that as a journalist discussing it, I have to accept some of the blame that there were some things that were so clear in the past. All right, and I just give the Demileville as an example. There are a few other things. I don't know if there are any other instances, but there are some things that have happened in this country that we know that you cannot be silent on this matter. But somehow we make it, we put MPP and NDC on it, and then the GBA finds a convenient escape to say we don't want to be drawn into a political matter, or we don't want to be drawn into whatever. Meanwhile, in the past, they've drawn themselves into many, many things. But I feel a bit restrained in going all out, because it's a bit rich for journalists on air and to blame lawyers for being quiet. Of course, we speak out. All right. I don't know where you sit on this matter, whether when you listen to Opuni Frimpong and the way he talks about the corruption in the judiciary and the lack of access to justice for the poor, and the way Sky links it to the silence of the GBA, whether it's even a legitimate link at all, and whether as a journalist, we should be calling out the GBA for their reticence, particularly in the years that this government has been in office. You know, it's a very long intro.
Yeah. I look at this in two ways. Okay. I look at it from the Ghana Bar Association perspective. And then I look at this from the general judiciary perspective, which is where Sky was talking about. And also, I think Reverend Punifempon did the same. I'll start from the Ghana Bar Association, and I largely agree with you on your point that Rawlings gave them a coalescing point. And so, in that fight against most of the things that Rawlings represented at the time, which were things that by every lawyer's training would be appalling, they found a point to unite and be vocal. And in that, they found a strength to become a very powerful voice in the democratic process, which is what is supposed to happen. Lawyers protect the law. Members of the judiciary protect the law. Sky can correct me here. Okay, so in that, they found unity and a voice. Now,
Hold it.
yes, once that battle had been fought, and some might say won, I think the Ghana Bar Association struggled to evolve from that body to become a modern democratic society organization like we have seen other CSOs become. Even though they are, I don't know whether we can even consider them a civil society organization. I don't think that would be
a professional body.
a professional body. Okay.
Is advocacy one of the responsibilities of professional body? Absolutely. Yeah, it is. So public advocacy is a core. So obviously to maintain professional standards.
Yes.
But also to do public advocacy in relation to the law.
Yes. So I think that there has been a lack of evolution. Now, that lack of evolution, personal opinion here, has also been born out of the very significant political trends within the Ghana Bar Association. The politics of this country significantly dominated by lawyers, most of whom are members of the Ghana Bar Association. Now, the coalesce against Jerry Rawlings meant that a lot of the lawyers were of a certain political leaning. Were of a certain political leaning, and they were the strongest. Now, once that battle had been won, and they no longer had to fight that war, they basically have not felt the need to fight for the things that they feel are right in that regard, because now most of them are in politics, active politics, day-to-day politics. Okay, so for me, that is where the weakness of the Ghana Bar Association has come from. There have been several opportunities the past decade for them to reinvent themselves as a relevant professional body. And for me, that is where I'm surprised that they have not perhaps considered the loss of relevance, because that is what it has become. There has been a significant loss of relevance of the Ghana Bar Association
In public discourse.
in public discourse. Now, the pain also is perhaps they're not realizing just how important it is for the Ghanaian democracy process to have them be a very vocal part. So they have become resigned to issuing press statements, picking and choosing issues that they want to address based on whose matter is on the table and what the relationships are between whoever is running the Ghana Bar Association at the time and whatever issue.
What was the last that they issued a statement?
I don't remember.
If you can even check, Nathan, Google it for me. I just want to check the last statement they issued.
You see,
just to be sure that they are still in the system.
They are in the system. They issue statements as and when. But also, Bernard, it's the loss of power. I think what they should be very troubled about is the loss of power of the voice that they used to have. Because back then, personal confession here, my father used to be a vice president of the Ghana Bar Association.
So this would be in the early 2000s.
Yes. So he was a long-time secretary of the Ghana Bar Association, then became a long-time vice president of the Ghana Bar Association. So I know exactly how the Ghana Bar Association works. Okay.
So is it fair to say that the membership largely has had people who are more of the persuasion of the Dankwa Buzia?
I don't have data to that effect. But if we are to look at
the leadership of the association at the time your father was vice president,
yes, was heavily linked
towards
MPP.
So again, this is a bit difficult for me to do. So, what's the name of the current president?
Yao Achampong Boafo.
He took over from who? Tony Forson.
Yes.
And Tony Forson took over from who?
Mr. Zwenes.
No, he took over from this guy, Benson Nuchukwi.
And then Nuchukwu took over from Zwenes?
I don't even think. Yeah, I think yes. Charlie, check it for me. But I think so. It was.
Sky, you should know this.
Sky was not in the country when the changes were taken. So Nuchukwu took over from, I think, Zwenes. Not everything Zwenes was president.
Nathan can check this. It's not a problem. Nathan can check. Zwenes is not too far back.
But I know that Nuchukwu was president at some point. Tony Forson was president at some point, and then this guy.
But that's the point. Sky has just made the point for us. The fact that we are even struggling to remember when 15 years ago we were having this conversation, we will not struggle, and Ghanaians would not struggle to tell you who is GBA president, who is GBA vice president, who is GBA secretary. Because of the power of their voice. That loss of voice is true, is gone. They need to reinvent themselves and fix it, and they need to look at themselves closely. Do we want to be a voice of the people, or do we just want to be political? Because I think at the moment that is the debate that they have amongst themselves.
But the question I have is, if majority of their members are of this political persuasion, will their leaders...
I don't want to say majority are of this political, because I don't have data to that effect. Okay. It will be unfair.
I see. No, because... because...
Just that most of the leading members...
Sky, the reason I'm pushing this angle is that it seems as if the people who've been elected to be president... to succeed to be elected to be president, you need to be perceived to be a certain way. I mean, when they do elections, I know they don't do elections on the basis of NDC MPP, but usually you hear that during the elections, this guy, they say is NPP guy. So
let's be open about this. The fact is, all these vanguards that we celebrated in the past, they have all been infiltrated by politics. That's the fact.
Good.
You can talk about the students' body, you can talk about labor unions, you can talk about the GBA, you can talk about even the press associations that we have in this.
So when you say infiltrated by, are you saying that the people who have been elected were elected because of a political persuasion, or the people, irrespective of their political persuasion, when they get into office, politics influences what they do, because they are not the same thing?
To a large extent, they seem to have a certain leaning, which leaning determines who becomes president or leader.
So your chances of even being voted for depends on which party you are supposedly aligned to.
Exactly. You look at it. Trace it from nukes. Go to the various SRC associations you have around the campuses. Go to Ghana School of Law.
Yeah.
Look through what's happening there.
So if you get selected because of your political persuasion, so right now, if the guy who won was supposed to be NDC, we would have had a more vibrant association, or vocal, not even vibrant, vocal. That's even a word.
Yes.
So, but is that what we want?
That's not.
Are we saying that? Okay. So are we saying that the association should have been more vocal, irrespective of whether what they are vocal for? So what are we really saying?
Because you see, the reason why they should be is because of the matters that they speak about. The matters that they speak about are not matters that are supposed to be clouded by political colors. You're talking about human rights.
Justice.
You're talking about justice.
Rule of law.
These are concepts
Transparency.
that require a higher calling of some kind.
I'll tell you something.
That cannot be tainted.
I just got a story online.
Okay.
13th September 2022.
What did they talk about?
Attorney General has called on lawyers to stand up and defend the judiciary against attacks, stating that it was a responsibility for them to do so. His call was related, and this story is from Ghana Web. His call was related to recent attacks, specifically by former President John Mahama on the judiciary.
Okay.
In his address at the ongoing Ghana Bar Association conference in Ho, This is 2022 last year. Dame stressed that it was worried. So you see how the thing has gone. AG, that the NDC lawyers, so this is the Attorney General saying that the NDC lawyers had failed to call Mahama to order despite having made the comment at a party event. Non-lawyer Mahama made the comment at a meeting of the legal committee of his party. None of the lawyers raised a finger to contest the wrong and dangerous propaganda by the former president. By their silence, they became abettors of the propagation of hate against the judiciary. Dame submitted.
What did he say?
I'm coming. I'm reading the story. He reiterated that the fact that lawyers need to be the loudest. This is the Attorney General speaking last year, and strongest defenders of an independent judiciary, and by extension, defenders of the most crucial arm of government. I find it worrying because lawyers ought to be the loudest and strongest defender. Mahama told the Guardian of NDC lawyers at a conference in Adan that a judiciary needed to be trusted by the public at all times because such trust had wide-ranging implications on the security of the state. He aimed at the current Chief Justice, stating that it will take a new CJ to carry out needed reforms in the judiciary because of a growing lack of trust in their work. The NDC has strongly stood by its views, while the MPP have slammed it as unwarranted and needless. So this, I think, is in relation to the election petition and its aftermath. I don't have the full quote, but this is a story I'm reading. Forgive me, I don't think I was following the news at this particular time. But it says Mahama told the Guardian of NDC lawyers at a conference in Ada that a judiciary needed to be trusted by the public at all times.
But that is without law is not.
That doesn't sound. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So that's what I'm saying. The journalist didn't give us the exact quote for which Mr. Dame was criticizing Mahama. But I find it interesting that the Attorney General only last year was calling on NDC lawyers to call out President. But I thought that was quite interesting.
So let me tell you about something I raised when you talked about when was the last time the GBA spoke and all of that. But this statement is not by the GBA, but was issued by a group of lawyers who also took notice of what they thought was the unwarranted silence of the GBA. And so the statement was issued on the 13th day of September 2021, and the GBA was preparing to go into their unusual conference as of that time. It says, press statement by lawyers on the Ghana Bar Association conference. Now, today, the Ghana Bar Association proceeds into conference. Now, this conference comes at a time when all time confidence in the GBA is at its lowest. The reputation of the GBA as a vanguard of truth, justice, and accountability has lost its shine. Now, as the conference proceeds to elect new executives, we call on the members of the GBA to navigate a clean break from the association's recent history. We invite the GBA to rediscover its voice and its role as a moral conscience of our democracy. We use this opportunity to bring to the attention of the conference the ensuing open statement. Now, the statement, which was open for signatures and has so far been signed by several members and non-members of the GBA, it goes on to say that the signatories are challenging the GBA to do better and to stand up for the defense and the upholding of freedom and justice. And it goes on to tell you exactly what the concerns of the people who put this together.
Let me get the story from Citi. Citi's story quotes Mahama directly. And then let me also make a correction. So recent GBA president.
Yes, we have that.
Boafo Achampong is the current. Took over from Tony Forson. Took over from Benson Nuchukui. Took over from Nena Megache. So Nena Megache is now a Supreme Court judge. Benson Nuchukui is still a private lawyer. Tony Forson is the immediate past president. And Boafo now. Zuenes was the Ghana Boxing Association.
Confused.
But he's a lawyer.
Yes, but I think because of your boxing committee.
But I think he had there must have been a regional.
Hold on. There's Peter Zuenes, who was boxing. There's also Charles Zuenes, who's a lawyer.
Yes.
But he's not a GBA president.
Yeah, I know he held some
position. Now let me read the story on Dame from the Citi website. Attorney General Minister of Justice Godfred Dame has raised concern about what he describes as unjustified attacks on Ghana's judiciary by former President Mahama. Mr. Dame says the unwarranted utterances dent the image of the judiciary, a development that threatens the peace and well-being of the country. It was a great dismay and embarrassment that I heard a person who has occupied the highest office of the land, that of the former president, recently launched an unwarranted attack on the integrity of Ghana's judiciary. I observed that this was the latest installment of a systematic attack by the former president, albeit unjustified. The Attorney General was addressing lawyers of the GBA conference in Ho, said well-meaning Ghanaians ought to call out the former president lest his conduct derails Ghana's democratic growth. I am compelled to comment on same in this state address because they border on the security of the state and constitute a deliberate pattern of conduct aimed at undermining the independence of the judiciary and an arm of government whose autonomy is crucial to its proper functioning. Such conduct is clearly deplorable, coming from one who has occupied the highest office of the president and aspires to that office at this moment. It is important for me to note that I express this sentiment not because I stand in opposition to the former president as a politician, Mr. Dami said. Recently, John Mahama called for a change in the leadership of the country's judiciary to repair what is described as its broken image. Mr. Mahama stated that the current state of the judiciary has sunk so low, and they give us a link to that story, which I'll read later, has sunk so low that it has lost the trust and faith of the ordinary person. Quote, so badly has the image of our judiciary deteriorated that many of our citizens openly make mockery of our justice system and of our justices. The phrase go to court is these days met with a derisive laughter instead of hope that one will truly get justice, unquote. There is therefore the urgent need for the Ghanaian judiciary to work to win the trust and confidence of the citizenry and erase the widely held perception of hostility and political bias in legal proceedings at the highest court of the land, the former president suggested. Mr. Mahama was addressing NDC Lawyers Conference. There he mentioned the current leadership of the judiciary lacks the qualities to redeem its sunken image, hence the need for a new Chief Justice. This is last year. Unfortunately, we have no hope that the current leadership of the judiciary can lead such a process of change. We can only hope that the new CJ will lead the process to repair the broken image that our judiciary has acquired over the last few years. I don't see how this is.
I think generally, that's a fair comment.
Yeah,
from the
it doesn't sound as
I don't find
as it is
anything particularly scandalous about it, except to say that if you call for a new Chief Justice when an existing Chief Justice is in office, then people will take a constitutional and legal view because, first of all, you cannot just remove a Chief Justice from office. There must be basis rooted in law for doing the same. So if those conditions required by law are not satisfied, you cannot remove it.
Let me give you context. Now, when you go to the original story, and again, listen, sorry I'm taking you back, but I feel like for the Attorney General to be saying that lawyers should call out a former president, I think it reinforces the point we are making on this show that if an Attorney General can ask so-called NDC lawyers to take on the former president for a statement he made about the judiciary, if you transpose that to current happenings in our country and the fact that lawyers as an association have collectively been quiet, do you understand the point? Because he is saying that for one statement that Mr. Mahama made, the lawyers of NDC persuasion should have taken him on. Now, listening to what the former president said now, it doesn't sound that bad. I don't know at the time what I said. I don't think I was in the news at the time. But at the same program, Ofosu Ampofo, national chairman of the party, lamented that members of the party had come under a lot of injustice in the last few years. He said the strongholds of the party have been target of unmerited attacks. He cited the recent incident of Manya and Yellow Krobo as clear examples of his claims and called on the legal practitioners in the country to avail themselves to fight injustices. So they quote Ofosu Ampofo to sort of give more credence to that. But my point is that is Mr. Dami's statement not further proof that the association has lost its position? Because we are talking about so many things that have happened. Look, Sal, you can take Sal. Yeah. A whole 4 districts or 4 communities don't have representation by some legal maneuverings. The association hasn't made any comment on it. A sitting Auditor General was hounded out of office with claims that he was supposed to have retired. There was no comment made about it. All right. There are other issues that are more controversial, like the Jachi Kwesin case, which even a lot of people think is unnecessary persecution. But we can park that because it's still it's in court right now, so we don't go there. But if the Attorney General can call on NDC lawyers to criticize the former president, then I think that lawyers ought to be criticized for their silence on so many issues, because we've said things about so many topics on this program that we are not even lawyers.
No, you see, I just want to say that, first of all, let us not characterize that all lawyers are not speaking. The fact is, there are lawyers from within the association who speak. I am a member of the Ghana capacity. Yeah, that's right. I'm a member of the Ghana Bar Association. I'm speaking, and I'm critiquing our leadership for not taking up his old image and shoving that in our faces through what they do today, to demonstrate that they are still living by the standards set by the likes of Samoku Jeto and all these great venerables who led the GBA in a way as to bring its reputation to us years after they have left office. So that is one fact. So if we talk, then we should talk about the leadership. You understand? So the leadership of the GBA confronting the major issues that matter. For instance, the Doma level matter. These matters should not be left to civil society groups, just like
That's right. So CDD actually took the matter to court.
Exactly.
Civil society groups went to court.
You need the GBA to protect, defend, and uphold our constitution, no matter who is in office. Because as for the constitution, it is apolitical. You and I, through our parents before us, voted for it. And we have inherited that document. And we say that this is what we want to work with. So if you see a military officer go to Ashaiman, decides to beat up all manner of people for no wrong done, in this country, the legitimate expectation of every Ghanaian is that the institution of lawyers should be seen to be condemning that and demanding accountability. If you see people killed in the immediate aftermath of an election that was controversial in the Bono areas, right?
This is a Techiman North.
Exactly. The legitimate expectation of every Ghanaian is that the GBA that we have always known should be speaking with absolute robustness as to demand accountability, insist and prosecute the matter until some determination is made, so that the people responsible are punished. If you see in this country, the way we mentioned earlier, Doma level was handled. I mean, that's a matter that the Supreme Court had, and you see,
the Supreme Court also took
some time to eventually determine the matter, by which time it became almost an academic decision. Although subsequent precedents will be guided by the precedent that has been set, that you cannot just move in.
We only pray.
Exactly. So the point that I'm making is that, look, it is not the case that it is all lawyers who are silent. There are lawyers who have been speaking. And in fact, some people like the Honorable Dafamapo, minded by what they believe they need to speak, have also formed their own version of the GBA.
Are you sure?
Oh, yeah, they formed something recently.
The Law Society.
The Law Society.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah, that's right. And yes, I mean, it was in the news.
Find out for me.
It was in the news. The Law Society of
Ghana. As an alternative pressure group.
Exactly. And then, mind you, the old venerable Wadbrew also had his own group long before some of us even became.
But is that the solution?
No, that is not the solution. The solution is the leadership of the GBA and all of these groups that matter, the TUC, the NAGRATs, the NAT, the Nursing People Association, all of these groups in the past, Bernard, were robust in their criticism of administrations in this country. The question we should ask ourselves is, why is it that today you cannot have a credible criticism coming in from NUCs, from the various student bodies we have?
I think you answered that question earlier when you said that the politics has infiltrated. So somehow it has watered down the advocacy side of the work they do.
Yeah, but you see, you have to understand that you are occupying a chair previously occupied by people who cared about this country and who did not look back to say, oh, because I have a certain leaning, I must be reserved in my approach to these matters. I think when you find yourself in these positions and you are put in charge, as I always say, take charge and do the work to the glory of God.
Let's read some comments on this matter. 054-998-6996. Do you agree with Reverend Dr. Kwamna Funifimfon, who says that lawyers and judges need to come out and help to correct the perception about the judiciary? The legal profession is sinking, and he says that they must rise up to save.
Who is it that says, Sky? That the law is the public conscience?
Oh, that's I've forgotten.
Either Locke or Hobbes, one of them.
The law is the public. But we can check it right now.
It says the law is the public conscience. You see, which is why I'm saying I make the call on the leadership of the Ghana Bar Association and the loss of voice
It's Thomas Hobbes.
Being born out of this no longer having the law as a public conscience. It was just politics.
Let me read a comment that will set the cat among the pigeons. This is from a lawyer.
Okay.
He says, guys,
the
GBA is a political organization and an appendage of the MPP. Even if a non-MPP person finds his or her way to become president of the association, they will find a way to make him sing from the MPP hymn sheet. Remember the treatment meted out to Neil O'Samuels for visiting Chachu, a member of the bar, in prison? Well, I don't remember, but maybe you will remember. Please remind us. So the point this person is making is that we are almost in a fool's paradise, hoping that the GBA will do anything else. Because the association, based on its founding, I won't call them principles, but I don't know what it's trying to say, based on the way it has manifested itself in our country for the past, 4 decades, has shown that it leans towards. Now he claims it's an appendage. I think that's a bit extreme. But I think his point is that this organization is pro-MPP as an organization in its ethos. So even if you are an NDC person in the association, you are in a minority. So if you are a president president of GBA, you will be isolated. In fact, it's like a guy who was on a WhatsApp platform, and then he was removed from the WhatsApp platform. He went to court, and the court decided that they should add him back. When the court said they should add him back and make him admin, then when he became admin, everybody left and created a new group. And they say he's going back to court to exercise his rights. So it's like you have been made the president of association. And they say Sky be NDC, so no command up. We go come out. So Sky goes to court to say no, he wants to be president. It's okay, you be president. Admin, then it's okay, we will leave. So you are president of a group of one. And I think this is Kenya or something. Somebody said. So that's why I have an interview of the guy. So the guy, it be voice clip for you. I go even play for you. They come out. He was channel. You said it be serious thing. President of it was a. They impeach her where he go court. When they say if we make a mad, the people say, okay, we'll go leave you.
Okay, so you see, there are two things. I'm looking at this strictly legally. You see, the right to freely associate means the right to actually even walk.
Yes.
So yes, while that association remains,
I think he was causing trouble, so they come out tell him from the group, and then he said he went to court, and the court said they don't have a right to remove him.
So the
court said now they make him admit.
And the people now decide that look, we are tired of this association. We are going. They're entitled to do that.
No, it's now state discrimination because they are discriminating against him. That everybody was admin, they didn't leave. He has become admin, they are leaving. So he has a right of fair treatment by the group. So I'm sure everybody can think of one or two people that they want to remove from their WhatsApp groups today.
Look, but Bernard,
yes, but let's go back to the serious point that this lawyer is making.
Yeah, that's right. See,
he's claiming that the GBA.
Now, is he a member of the GBA?
Okay, lawyers, please, are you a member of the GBA? Let me know.
Most lawyers are. Most lawyers. I mean, it's like the default institution.
It's like 80% or 90%.
So I'm just asking. So when you get called to the bar, does it kind of almost mean you are part of the GBA, or you need to formalize your?
Well, you have to formalize it. Like you have to pay dues, you have to pay subscription, you have to, pay for.
But the guy is saying that this person says
get
the
a certificate
GBA
and numbers and all
is a political organization. That is not wrong.
That's true. It's a political,
but it's not partisan.
But was it always a political organization?
It's always been a political.
That's why they do civil society, identifiable groups, professional bodies. Professional bodies were part of our political.
So there are lobby groups of some sort and advocacy groups.
Yeah, they are civil society organization in a sense. You understand?
You see,
they are key actors of our democracy.
The difficulty with this is that, unlike the GJA, where even if the association decides to be partisan, the members in manifesting their journalism are confronted with political issues every day. So you can take journalists and the way they work collectively and say, there are many of them who will not toe the line of the GJA president.
Oh yeah.
But lawyers, by their training and qualification, may not have the luxury. In fact, I remember when Citi started in 2004, 2006, the then Attorney General was not too happy with lawyers just going on air to comment by heart on issues. They want, I think, if I understood him, he said there was supposed to be some level of civility and order. It's like you can't just have lawyers just going on air by heart, something like that.
No, I think the framing of it was that a matter that is
sub-judicial should not be discussed on. Okay. But I'm still saying that. So a journalist every day is confronted with political issues that he has to make a judgment on. Lawyers can decide by their training and their practice to stay away. So the only means by which they can ventilate their views on our politics is through the association. So a GJA can be dormant as a political body, but there will be journalists who you cannot. So whether it's Kwesi Pratt or Kweku Bako, they will say what they have to say. Even so, they don't take their merchandise from Afel Money at the time or the new guy today. But under the lawyers, a lot of lawyers find it's almost like the law is not the same. Do you understand? Because if I am a journalist and everyone have to comment on a political issue, it's part of my work. So I'm doing my work. Now, if a lawyer, a non-partisan lawyer, is always commenting on political issues, it will be found to be a bit odd. Unless, of course, it's within the alley of his field, which is why the GBA becomes more important. Okay? So a lot of what you are doing here, you are doing it as a journalist. That's why there are some issues that come up, you decide to stay out, because for law, so I feel like this claim that the GBA is a political organization, it requires a bit of scrutiny.
No, that's what I'm saying.
As a partisan.
Yeah, when it's so you see, as a political institution is not in dispute. The question of whether it is partisan, which carries a certain political.
And I'm told that without being a member of the GBA, you cannot renew your license to practice. So it seems like it's that's what I'm told.
No. What Brio has been practicing for so many years, long before I even became.
So he's not a member.
He's not a member of the GBA, as I understand it. He has his own 2-man or 3-man. Oh no, seriously. Yeah, I mean, I interviewed him.
Body.
Yeah, he has his own profession.
Why did you join his own? Why did you join this one?
No, I mean, this is the ish. Really.
No, because I'm told this.
So this is the ish.
This lawyer is claiming it, and this lawyer is claiming that he says, I'm a member of the bar. In fact, I am compelled to be a member. Without that, I cannot renew my license to practice. But for that, I would not have been a member.
I've also received. Let me read this message out to you.
Yeah.
This one says, the way the GBA itself functions, and this person is a lawyer, says the way the GBA itself functions is very questionable. It's supposed to be a voluntary association. So lawyers only join if they want to, but they work in a mandatory manner. Says our regulator is the General Legal Council.
You see?
So every lawyer must pay an annual licensing fee to the council.
You see?
But the GLC and the GBA have entered into an unholy matrimony under which you must pay GBA dues
to qualify.
Pay your licensing
Yeah,
fee.
you see, so they've merged.
It depends as that in itself is wrong.
Yeah, this is another person who says, Bernard, I'm a lawyer and I can attest that GBA is a political organization leading towards the MPP. My issue is that the association has more or less been made compulsory to all lawyers because it is difficult to practice the association. So I feel like, look, this is very simple. Lawyers know the law. If there are enough lawyers who think that the GBA, by tying its coattails to the GLC, is performing an illegality which is unconstitutional, I think they can go to court. And I also think that if they feel like forming a new association, they obviously should. Why not? We are the Ghana Federation of Labour. I'll tell you something. There was a day I was sitting with Abraham Kumsi and I said, you people say the labor unions have become weaker. And I was trying to blame him for forming the Ghana Federation of Labour. I says, no. When you are together and the direction of the organization is headed wrong, sometimes the best way to ventilate that is to leave. But when it comes to important matters of principle, we come together. So it says, for example, in the recent issues, they've collaborated. In fact, they've taken each other to court. But when it matters most,
you see the two of them together.
They come back and they do demonstration together. So, Sky, you people are lawyers. If the GLC and the GBA...
I'm here as a journalist.
Yeah, no. If the GLC and the GBA have come together in this unholy matrimony, and there are enough lawyers who feel that the GBA is leaning too much to the MPP, I think beyond forming their own association, they can actually go and test this issue of the illegality of having a voluntary association be made to compulsorily be the channel for which you can renew your license. Because once you pass your bar exam, I think maybe the GLC can regulate you directly. It should not be the association. Of course, you can say that the GLC has outsourced the professional standards and ethics function to the GBA, which is also possible. Because journalists, again, using our association as an example, one of the rules of the GJA is to help to maintain professional standards.
Yeah,
so the regulator can say, look, self-regulate. So we are saying the professional body, accountants. If you want to be an accountant in Ghana, ICA regulates you because they have the standards for professional accountants. You can say that for engineers as well. So maybe it's not too far-fetched to have the Bar Association be a quasi-regulator because professional standards can be peer review issues, which is why they go to Congress and they can decide that from today, we will not do this again as lawyers. They all agree. So I feel like there are two things. Either you people should go to court to clarify the role of the GBA in relation to license to practice, or whether you can delink license to practice from so-called ethics, which the GLC is in charge of. Do you follow my point now?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that as a matter of exclusivity of the GBA being the only conduit for facilitating your acquisition of license, I don't know.
So repeat that.
I think the suggesting that the GBA is the only or the exclusive.
That's what all of them are saying. That's what all the lawyers are telling me.
I cannot speak to it. I don't know enough in that respect to make.
But you haven't renewed your license yet.
No, I got my license.
You don't get me.
Yeah.
You got your license in 2022.
Yeah.
So
it's actually this year.
Good. So what I'm saying is that when you start renewing, then you will see the invisible hand of the GBA in the renewal. So because these guys who are telling me this, I've been in this for like 10 years. So like there's a GBA hand in the renewal, which for now is not obvious to you.
No. You see, the fact is, make the payment. Of course, you go to the GBA's portal.
Yes.
To make the payment for the various licenses and the things that you need, right? Subscriptions that you want to do. Yeah, that is a fact. But as to whether it is the only way
that
for
is what all the lawyers are telling me.
There's a stark difference between the only and a platform for getting. I don't know.
All the lawyers sending me messages are saying that it is by force.
How does what Brew get?
We should go and ask him. He's the only person. Have you noticed? He's the only person who is not in this thing. No, seriously. I mean,
because he's fought.
Yeah, but Rod Brew
is
an institution, so maybe he has a special dispensation as Rod Brew because they know. You understand? So because Rod Brew has been. I mean, when I was.
Oh, he's still a member.
See, me, I was born in Medina. As a child, I knew Rod Brew was a lawyer that people go to when they want help. Even as a child. Do you understand? He said Medina at the time when he was coming to Medina court, and if you have an issue, he will help you. So even from those days, maybe he has a different dispensation. But most normal lawyers will need a GBA license. Nathan, read some comments for me.
Just quickly to mention that the Farmapo Group is the Law Society of Ghana. And in fact, they came into the news after they launched, and then the Speaker of Parliament said something.
Yeah. The other problem is that,
and he's the interim.
The other problem is that if you take this matter of GBA and GLC to court,
that's the question I was asking.
I've never seen the GLC lose a case in our courts because the GLC is everybody who is like, for example, students take GLC. Students, what is the question of bar exam writing?
It's GLC.
GLC.
No. You see, in some of the cases decided, in fact, in connection with the respected professor in the US, Professor Sari, some of these decisions, went against the institution. Although they said that, okay, for instance, in one case they found that the exams or the interviews were wrong.
Sky,
but they said that
let's make an. But I think I want to make this point. Bernard, tell Sky that the only way to renew your license is to go through the GBA.
Okay.
So you. Let me use your word. Necessarily.
Oh, very well.
This is Sky's word. So, unquote, you necessarily need to pay GBA dues to be able to go through the license renewal process, full stop.
I see.
Now, Rod Brew revolted and formed the Ghana Association of Bar. But, wait, we don't know how many members they have. And you didn't choose to join. All the lawyers calling me have not joined. They are still with GBA.
Yeah, so that's the question. Why are they not with Rod Brew? Of course, the Farmapo has formed this one with some other lawyers, in the
Pascal, you know what's troubling me here? Lawyers, by their training, are the people who are supposed to understand the law the most. If they feel there's an injustice being done against them, I'm so surprised that they are not taking it on at the courts. Is it a question of their lack of confidence in their... Because if you claim through a text message to a journalist that tying GBA membership to professional license is is even unfair. Okay.
Let me read one for you.
It is because
You are saying it's unfair. Okay, send it to Shraj Impwe. If you say it's unfair, let's assume you are not saying it's illegal, but then there's between illegal and unfair. So Shraj is administrative justice. So you are saying that if I want to be a practicing lawyer in Ghana, it is an injustice to force me to be a member of the GBA to renew my license because the freedom of association, which is a constitutional matter. You can say, let's go to Shraj and say, I, Kofi Mensah, a lawyer who was called to the bar in 1986, I think that I want to renew my license in 2023 and I don't want to be a member of the GBA. At least test it in court. But for all of you, by all your education, you say you are not going to test this matter, and you are sitting here telling me that. So how will this kind of GBA, including the lawyers who claim that GBA is biased, they don't even have the blockers to even take their own GBA to court? How will they expect GBA? Just as I'm saying, Godfred, lawyers are sitting here telling me that GBA is perpetrating an illegality on them.
I've not said that.
No, I'm not talking about you.
Because I'm the only person.
And lawyers, people are calling me. Lawyers are telling me that GBA. See, listen to the contradiction here. Lawyers are saying that the association, some of them are saying the association has become MPP. They are not criticizing the government, and that they are not doing the right thing. Fair enough. Your own rights are being violated by your association that you belong to. You don't have the temerity to even take them on, to even charge. So what shows that if you even become the president, you do anything better than the current president? Just that, because is the GBA leadership more kakai than the government? I find it very preposterous that you say the GBA is perpetrating an illegality on you, and you have not even gone to Shraj to say, Tony Whittal, Mr. Whittal and Co., I want to renew my license as a lawyer, but I have chosen to leave the GBA because being a member of an association is voluntary. Or the group, the Dafra group. Why didn't they all did it as a matter of public OJ say all 16 members or whatever number they are, we are leaving the GBA, we are forming this association, and we will still renew our license. And let the GBA say to them, you will not be a lawyer. They will tell you that you are right or wrong.
I think I will take you back a few steps to some of the things mentioned by some of the lawyers who have sent us messages, highlighting the alliance, or in their words, the unholy matrimony between the GBA and the GLC. So maybe in their world, taking on the GBA is almost akin to trying to fight the system.
It means they don't have confidence in the judiciary. That's what it means. Because why will I'm coming. Why didn't you hear the man? The opponent from Pond said, people now, when you say you are going to court, they rather prefer to either go to media or go to their local deity to deal with the matter because they have more confidence in it.
Yes.
Now, when you see people take matters to court, it is because they have confidence in the court.
Yes.
So when you have an election petition in Kenya, Nigeria, or Ghana,
take it to court.
It's because they are saying that my rights have been violated, and I believe that this body can help me to
can address whatever.
So if lawyers in Ghana if they believe the association is violating their rights, and yet they don't see what should they do? What are they telling us? It means that they either don't have confidence in the judiciary, or they are cowards. Yeah, that's the only conclusion. And this is not.
Help
me. I am using just logic. I'm not even taking a position. I'm just saying that it's very clear that if you claim that the alliance is unlawful and illegal, and you in the same breath tell me that the association has become too political, so you have two reasons to even leave the association. Your first reason is that they are perpetrating illegality on lawyers. Second reason is that they are an appendage of a political party which you believe you are not part of. And yet, all you can do is to say, we'll see. So it means that you are either not confident in what you actually believe in, or you are actually happy with what they are doing. Yes, because there has to be a day where you stand up for what you believe. Yeah. If you claim that this is an association that has become a president of the MPP, and not a member of the MPP, then you should you can even sue the GBA. And said GBA, by its articles of incorporation, is supposed to be non-partisan. So why have we, for the past 10 years, kept quiet? Okay. Then you sue them and say the GBA leadership has not shown good faith based on why they were sworn in. That's why they take the oath. You sue them. If you sue them and they don't, you show, but they are not doing anything. They are not writing articles. They are not doing nothing. They are just doing their cases. And then they are sending text messages to me that I should go and fight for them. How can I fight for you?
Okay. Richard, did Ward Brew ever take the GBA on?
Oh yeah, I mean they have been caught. In fact, I think as recent as 2022 or so, there's still a matter that he's prosecuting in the courts. To the best of my knowledge, yes. It's almost always fighting them over one thing.
And I'm told that some people have won case against GLC. So it's not as if, for example, Susu won a case.
So that's the point.
So my point is, even makes it worse. The GLC is beatable in court.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
But if they are beatable in court, why are the lawyers who claim that they don't want to be part of the arrangement between the GLC and the GBA not ventilating that in court?
So that's
or even at the charge?
You see, that's why in my response to you, I said that first of all, I do not know enough as to come to the conclusion that the GBA is the only conduit for getting the license to practice.
Every lawyer says that's the only.
I don't know.
All the lawyers talking to me today say that's the only.
Let me read this one for you. Hold on.
Let me just
No, calm down. There's a message on that 62 also. It says, the GBA is not a mandatory association. The license to practice is issued by the General Legal Counsel through the Ghana Bar Association. If you have not paid your dues or are not a member, you can get your license to practice, except that you cannot use the GBA online platform, which members in good standing use. You would have to do this to renew you would have to then renew your license manually. By manual license renewal, you would write to the council for renewal and pay appropriate dues. This, however, would take time. It could take you 1 month or more to go and physically get your certificate to practice, whilst the online platform is instant. So with the online, you get an online certificate instantly.
We'll take a break and read some
in fact, I mean, a colleague lawyer is drawing my attention to the fact that the matter you're talking about regarding renewal of license, I've not read that case. It says that he's gone to court and the Supreme Court ruled on the matter that you don't have to renew through the GBA.
Wonderful.
Today, if you go to the GBA, you tell them you are applying manually.
So my question to lawyers...
So it's not wrong.
My question to lawyers in Ghana today who feel that the GBA has become an appendage of the MPP. Do you leave or you stay and fight? And that's the question all of us will face. That's the answer you sent to me today. You are part of something that you think is going the wrong direction. So it could be a political party, it could be a church, it could be a company. And you feel
an
that...
institution.
Yes. So you are part of something that you feel is lost its way. So you are part of a church, a religious body, a political party, or an institution of which you are a member of. Do you Kojo to Boafo resign from the Presby Church? Or do you stay to reform it? Now, if you stay to reform it, they will deal with that when you come back. How does staying to reform it look like versus leaving to make a statement? And I'm using the case of organized labor as a case study, where there's a living example of the Ghana Federation of Labor, who felt that organized labor was becoming
something else. They chose to leave, and GLC is very strong.
Although you can say collectively, organized labor is weaker, but that's not just Ghana. Globally, labor unions have become weaker. Okay, by some of the new labor policies practiced everywhere. But so we'll use Abraham Kumsin approach. He went to court, and he still collaborates with the TUC. But he's basically saying where they were going is not right for all of us. Some people believe that when you break away, you weaken the front. So let's stay within and let's fight for reform internally. So this is where we come back. The lawyers who are complaining that the GB is political, I want to hear your voice.
Including the Ghana Bar Association itself, from what I'm hearing.
What do you mean?
Mr. Lawyer Boafo.
Yeah, I want to hear from them. Me, I've been trying to get interviews with them. I'm not succeeding. So they can come and speak.
Then why is he complaining?
He's complaining about what?
That nobody has called him.
Are you kidding me?
So why is he complaining somewhere then?
Well, maybe they want a formal. Okay, so maybe what we need to do is do a formal letter. I know lawyers are very formal. We write a formal letter. Dear say, I want to interview you.
You go on your break.
But if he's willing, we can talk now.
Go on your break.
Find him for me.
The Boafo food.
Now me mind the that's what they've invited. I don't mean
go on your break.
I don't have any relationship. I don't have any issue with him. I need to remind those who just tuned in the basis for the discussion, and I think it's very important because some people may think that how did these guys get here? Reverend Dr. Kwabena Opunifrempong was the main speaker, or he delivered a sermon at the 41st anniversary of Martyrs' Day, in which 3 justices of the High Court and a military officer were killed in 1982, June 30. In delivering the sermon, he called on lawyers and judges to redeem the image of the judiciary or the legal profession, or I don't know how to put it. Because he says that there was a strong perception of corruption in the way justice was dispensed and in people's access to justice. Right. Now, we dealt with that point where we largely agree with him, but we've expanded upon that to talk about the silence of the GBA on pressing issues. We gave an example of the Domelevo matter, where it was quite clear to those of us who were from outside that this was political witch hunting. The GBA didn't say anything about it. There's also the Sal case. The GBA didn't say anything about it. There are lots of cases. Yes, some are controversial. For example, even the transfer of judges. All right, if you look at the Opuni case, there are so many different things that happen within cases that a vibrant association that's policing justice delivery would comment on, because they would be in a better position to interpret what's going on. Okay, for some reason, that has not happened. Now, I am not on air to attack the current president of the GBA. I don't even know him. That is why I took the trouble to take you through presidents since Nene Amegache, Benson Nuchukwi, Tony Forson, and the current GBA president. So this has nothing to do with the current GBA president. We are saying that this what's the word we use? This dormancy is a judgment, it's a value judgment. Yes, it's our opinion. Has been on for at least a decade. So if anything at all, the current president has inherited an organization that is losing its relevance in relation to public discourse and advocacy. Advocacy is a very important part of law. Indeed, the lawyers are trained in advocacy when they do moot court. Advocacy is a skill to be treasured. And advocacy is not just standing before a judge and speaking. Advocacy is standing to speak for people. So civil society, professional bodies are supposed to be advocates. A professional body is not just to maintain professional standards, but they must fight for their weak. And when injustice is being done, they must speak. And we are saying that we don't see it. Now, if the GBA feels two things, I hope the GBA doesn't see this as an attack on them, because that's not the intention of this program. All right? My intention for bringing this topic is not to attack GBA, which is why I even took the trouble of saying that maybe the media's way of even presenting issues could be part of the issue. And I've tried to play devil's advocate on the program. So I don't want anybody to sit at home thinking that these guys are on edges attacking the GBA. That's not what we are trying to do. All right. Number two, our platform is very open. We've made attempts to get GBA to speak on many issues, and it's not been successful. Yes, they've also tried to come and speak on certain selected topics, which the time has not agreed for. But I'll say to you that I will be the last person to say no to an interview with the GBA if they really wanted to give me to speak on any issue.
Yeah.
We haven't seen statements issued. We think that the association has become too quiet. And not only as a lot of people believe this to be true. My retort to lawyers is that if you feel the association is
should just check their barometer report.
Unjustly or unfairly violating their rights, and that has been clarified, they can go to court. I'm told that matter is no longer even an issue because the court has decided that you cannot force a person to be a member of GBA. So now, having done this, all those lawyers who are complaining that GBA has become too MPP, what are you doing about it? Because I think that that's the general Ghanaian attitude. We complain and don't do anything. If you say, as a lawyer, that the GBA has become too political, there's an example of Kenneth Kumsin, Abraham Kumsin. He felt that the labor unions were not going the right way. He did what he had to do. He went to court, he formed a new association, and the association is very vibrant. I even think that the GFL gets more media interviews than even the TUC. Particularly when it comes to the industrial workers, textile workers, all these tema workers, they are all under GFL. And GFL is doing the work. So if you are a lawyer who believes that the GBA has become too MPP, and you don't like MPP, or you're not in MPP, or you're just a neutral person, what are you doing about it? That's the question.
Let me read some messages for you. So this one comes from, I don't think he's a lawyer. Tony Asari is not a lawyer. He's an architect.
He's an architect.
Yes.
With an opinion.
Yes. So it says, he says the legal profession has to do better. And then raises a couple of points. It says the boycott of the 1992 Constitution was a sin against the soul of the Republic of Ghana. Ghana needs a proper restitution from lawyers past. Lawyer Samu Kujeto has even acknowledged that. It was the lowest point in the governance architecture of our poor country. Now we want it changed or reviewed. For 10 years, the GBA hasn't made it a priority to push for it. It is unbelievable. 2, do a call. Ask how long simple cases run in this country. Even a simple case of someone clearly owing another lasts more than 7 years. Justice delayed, no absence of justice. Then goes on to cite the case, the example of Rwanda, as I'm told that if a case runs for more than 3 months, a judge has the right to explain. Maybe we can't just copy, but can we have a commitment to improve? Our justice delivery system should repent, turn over a new leaf, and look different. This includes what they were to court. Thank you, Tony Asari. And then you've raised this matter. It says the GBA is, someone also says the GBA is not different from what it was in the past. The only difference has always been which party is in power. Wait for a change of government and reassess the GBA.
Another Tony.
Yes, this is also coming from Tony. Abeku, if you can help me with messages, please.
Yeah. Yes. So 0549986.
City, without your GBA dues, you cannot renew your license. I think we've cleared up that matter, so I won't take any of those messages. Bernard, this GBA GLC matter, we had the same problem as architects. A couple of colleagues took it to court and won a favorable decision. They are simply afraid of victimization. Bernard, this is the same for most professional bodies now. Before you can pay your Ghana Institute of Architects annual subscription, you have to pay the regulatory body subscription, which is the Architects Regulatory Council. But it shouldn't be so. Says yes, the conduct of judges and lawyers is largely to be blamed. It is very real. I will put it at 98.6%. The public's perception that justice delivery is corrupt is true. My family has suffered due to these two groups. I'm sure many people will tell the same story. Fred from Tema says, the work of the court clerks makes matters worse with respect to leading processes astray. At least you're able to read through the actions of the lawyers and judges. Bernardi, I, as a Ghanaian, is doing everything in my power not to go to the court in any way, shape, or form. If you don't have any idea of what a mafia group is, try our courts. And he's very, very upset.
So mafia you?
Just was the advocacy of the GBA not in response to military rule? Is there a public advocacy role for them in a democracy? And that's what I was talking about, the evolution of the body with once that period had ended. Hello, Bernard. Justice in Ghana is a commercial venture auction to the highest bidder. Sometimes even your own lawyer can go to the extent of siding with your opponent and sell you out because the other side will pay higher. Freedom and justice indeed. He's very upset. Good morning, Bernard. Judges are corrupt, we know. Who makes them corrupt? If Ghanaians stop giving bribes, they'll stop receiving it. Let's change our attitude first. Fidelis. Julius from Mangwasi Senior High School. Bernard, if you have not been to court before, you will not understand the Reverend. Many people are languishing in jail because very influential people, politicians, and the rich have always twisted the arms of judges in their favor. Good morning, City. Please ask Richard Sky what he thinks of the Supreme Court ruling that birth certificate is not proof of citizenship. The Constitution says you are a Ghanaian if either of your parents are Ghanaian, and the birth certificate states your parents and their nationality. Does he find this ruling absurd? This is from David Tindan. Bernard and team, please check the whereabouts of the recent past GBA presidents, including the Greater Accra Bar presidents. And you see some truth to the perception that they tend to speak out when a particular tradition is in power. Jesse from Sakumono. The GBA has become an extension of the MPP, and that is the truth. We should not run away from it. It has reduced their status in the eyes of well-meaning citizens. In a future NDC government, I'm certain there will be an attempt to weaken it further. Okay, this Abdul Hamid Medina Gameli says, good morning, Bernard. Please check the trend of the GBA press statements and forceful advocacy. Majority of it is during the tenure of the NDC, and they tend to go to bed when the MPP is in power. Look at the travesty of Sal. Nothing from the Ghana Bar Association.
Lots of comments. All right, let me tell you a couple of quick things before we continue. I'm really happy to hear from lawyers because the question for this segment is, if you are part of an institution that you believe is lost its way, how do you resolve that with yourself? Do you leave it? Do you stay to try and reform it? Do you expose it? Or a combination of all three? I say this because there's a lot of, I'm seeing, there's a certain phenomena in modern Ghana called the I stand with phenomena. So you are part of a church or somebody, and then the leader is accused of doing something, and then there's like a
unanimous
hashtag I stand with Alowski. I stand with her. So it, no, of course not. But I'm asking this for people who feel disappointed enough about the GBA as lawyers. And I'm also generalizing it because once you put the microscope on lawyers, you also have to put the microscope on yourself. All right. So there are a lot of things about journalism that I'm not happy with. I'm still in it because I feel like there's a way in which we can do it for people to still see its good side. So some can say journalism has lost its way. All right,
which is legitimate.
When you compare us to some of the high standards of some of our forebears, you can see that we've lost our way a bit. But we still stay in there to try and correct it by doing things different. Even also because we are not bound by what the GJA does or does not do.
But even Bernard, like even on this show, for the past, we've been victims of, or we've been accused. I will not say victims. We've been accused of, 5 years ago, you sounded like this. This year, you sound like this. You used to say this, used to say that. So the perceptions matter, whether you like it or not. It could be true, it could not be true. But people will tell you that this is how I used to view you. This is how I view you now.
Okay.
What you do with it is up to you. You can decide to do an introspection and see whether it is right or not. If you don't feel so, you move on. Okay, but if you actually sit down and feel, okay, there is actually some truth to this, you work on it. And
it's a very interesting point you make about what people see. What we do, though, is to try by continuity for people to judge. Because, so take us from the past 12, 15, 20 years and put our programming into context and then decide for yourself where we stand. Now, I think if you look at, with all the greatest humility, if you look at the numbers and the feedback, the consistency is there. Now, I'm saying this being cognizant of the fact that we've sort of changed personnel quite a bit, but the general thrust of the show is still the same. We don't want to side with any political party. We believe that the Ghanaians deserve better, and our challenge is bad governance and bad leadership. Citizens must be responsible as well. So it's that's what we try to do. All right. There are days that we will go.
We'll feel at it.
That's it. We'll go like very hard, but there are days we'll also be a bit relaxed. So that's how I try and resolve it. I don't sit here to protect any political party's interest or to push any party's agenda. I come to push the Ghana agenda as I understand it. That would mean holding power to account and also asking citizens to be responsible. We've done this throughout. Of course, the tone can be different. Sometimes some people perceive a certain difference and a certain view. And that I can't do so much about. But if you take our program, even for the past 3 months, you can tell clearly when I came back after my bereavement, that first week, it was about, what are we talking about?
We're talking about the money that they have taken.
Yeah, it was, yes.
You know, and DDE. Throughout that period, you know, so look, it's that's why for me, when I do this discussion, I always start with myself. That Charlie, we the media are not even perfect, but that doesn't mean we cannot discuss other people.